First of all, my name is Rose Fabia. I'm a resident of Dominion Hills neighborhood. I've been in active in politics with the Arlington Dems Committee beyond Arlington, plus I'm an active executive committee member of We Have Action Indivisible. I'm here to introduce to you State Senator Barbara Favola as our nominee for the general election this coming November. Most of you might remember Senator Favola served successfully as our county board member from 1997 through 2012. She did a fantastic job, and I have such great feelings and remembrance of all that she did. In 2011, she took a leap to run for state senator and won handily for each re-election race, and she's now serving in her 12th year as a senior leader. Because of redistricting, known as redrawing the district lines, she is now our nominee to be our state senator in the 40th district. And by the way, she recently won the most votes on record of any senator in a primary election. Woo! Over the years, I paid attention and admired all the achievements Barbara Favola has accomplished in the Senate. She is known for her savviness, her astuteness, her collaboration to work across the aisle when they want to, but she is also our brick wall to the extremism of Governor Youngkin and the Republican Party. And most of all, she continues to support progressive legislation in the area of affordable health care and women's reproductive rights, climate change and clean energy, plus making Virginia safer with common sense gun safety laws. As the majority whip in the Senate, she knows what it takes to get a bill passed, and she has become someone who has her finger on the pulse of Virginia politics. We are so fortunate to have her representing our values at the state level. And so it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you our nominee for state senator for the 40th district, Barbara Favola.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Rose. And thank you for all who had a part in organizing this. I think this is pretty amazing. It's so convenient to have this platform, this Zoom platform where people can hop on, and I'm not offended if you're doing other things and you're not literally in front of the screen. I just think it's great that we have this social platform to reach out to. I should say that for the western part of the county, you are now new to my Senate district. My current Senate district actually only has half of Arlington, primarily the northern part and the Roslyn-Boston quarter. I do currently have a tail that goes up the Potomac, so I have part of McLean, all of Great Falls, and I even have 6 precincts in Loudoun. But the Supreme Court redrew the district using a special master from both the Democratic side and the Republican side. Compactness was a primary criteria in that framework for redrawing the districts. So I guess in the Supreme Court's wisdom, this is the Virginia Supreme Court, I should clarify. They decided that my tail didn't make a lot of sense and they should give me just about all of Arlington. And that's what I have. I have about 93% of the county, and my entire Senate district is now in Arlington. So that means I've got 22 new precincts. So Dominion Hills, Rock Spring, Yorktown, Westover, Waverly Hills, all those neighborhoods Lexington are now new to my district. Of course, you all remember me from the county board, but I had not been representing you in the state Senate. Janet Howell had been. So I am excited that we're doing this outreach. I did a lot of door knocking in my new precincts, and you all are very friendly, very welcoming, and very attuned to my progressive values. So we had great conversations at the door. I would characterize this past session as a session where the Democratic brick wall really came into play. We have a Senate that is controlled by a slight margin of Democrats, 22 Democrats, 18 Republicans. Lieutenant Governor is Republican. And then we've got the House of Delegates with 48 Democrats and 52 Republicans. But the Republicans governed as though they had this overwhelming majority. Not surprising. This is an election year, so many of the bills that were introduced last year, lawmakers were playing to their base because they thought they were going to be in primaries. So the kinds of bills that came forward were really bills that were intended to reverse the progress we made when the Democrats had the trifecta, control of the House, control of the Senate, and Governor Northam was our governor. We had no fewer than 7 bills to remove Virginia from the regional greenhouse gas initiative, no fewer than 7. And remind you, I just want to remind you, that's a voluntary program where, you know, our utility companies were closing coal mines, capturing a reduction in carbon emissions, which actually translated into carbon credits. They were selling them to other mid-Atlantic states, and we were getting $200 million into our coffers, 200 million, which were earmarked for all environmental causes. A lot of it went to flood control prevention. Some of it went to low-income weatherization grants. It was very disheartening to see 7 bills try to take us out of that. You know, we had bills that tried to reverse the Commonwealth Energy Plan that I passed 2 years ago, which, you know, had us transitioning to renewable energy, had us with 0 net carbon reductions by 2045. It was a great bill, and just about every piece of legislation we saw from the House was intended to reverse that. It was discouraging. So in the environmental space, we were fighting tooth and nail to really keep the ground that we had gained. And it was complicated because a lot of the bills that passed in 20 and 21 actually required the administration to implement regulations. And of course, we had the Youngkin administration doing the implementation. So we certainly have not made the progress we had expected. I had introduced a bill to enable schools to get, it wasn't a mandate, but to enable schools to get access to a lot of resources if they went ahead and did solar roofs or renewable energy, made their buildings more efficient. That bill did not pass. I, however, was successful in the last budget cycle, getting millions of dollars to every school system in the Commonwealth to upgrade its HVAC system. So I can call that a big success. In the reproductive health area, you know, we had bills that you just can't imagine. Bills that defined life at the point of conception, bills that had all kinds of bans, abortion bans, bills that would have affected access to contraceptive care. I mean, it was really pretty draconian. The governor put in a bill to ban abortion at 15 weeks with few exceptions, and even had money in there to criminalize providers. So we were very busy defeating all those bills, and we were very clear about it. I mean, this is a question of liberty and dignity. It's a question of healthcare and decisions that affect individuals' lives and their well-being, the lives of their families. This was no place for government interference. And the party that espouses limited government should certainly live by that. And when it comes to the most personal and intimate healthcare decision. So now I had a bill that got a lot of national attention and put Youngkin on the defense. I thought it was a very simple bill myself. It was the shortest bill in the General Assembly, 3 lines. And it merely said that your menstrual health data that was kept on an app could not be accessed by the police. In other words, they couldn't use a search warrant, protected that information from a search warrant. So I thought, well, who would want access to menstrual health data? This is a privacy issue, and it should pass. It passed the Senate with some Republican support, 10 Republican senators, and then it got to the House and it was defeated because Governor Youngkin sent his spokesperson to stand up and speak against it. So that was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous to counter something like that. Just to think that I had to stand in front of a committee to say, you know, this is really personal information. It's private. It's not protected under HIPAA. It's not a medical record. We want this bill. You have no business accessing our menstrual data, unless, of course, you want to prosecute a woman for violating an abortion ban. But I lost the argument. However, the national networks picked it up. I was on quite a few TV shows, but the governor was too, trying to defend his position. And Colbert picked up on Governor Youngkin's defense, which he did not treat it kindly. And it was pretty amazing. I think the value of that bill, besides its content, which was, I think, value meritorious in and of itself, is it really showed how extreme this administration is. So this nonsense about, oh, the governor is a moderate, he's a nice guy, he can't possibly be that extreme. He truly is. He may not have the edge that Trump has, or the persona of somebody who's in your face all the time, but he's very much, very extreme when it comes to these cultural issues. So that was, that took up the whole last week of my life in the session. Now, areas where I did have success was in the mental health space, and I do a lot professionally in healthcare. So the governor signed my bill, which will provide jails with a significant amount of money to do true substance use disorder treatment, not just detox, but a treatment plan and a good transition plan. We found a fair number of our drug overdose deaths resulted from folks who were recently released from jail. So, so we were trying to solve that problem. I did have a bill working with the hospitals that is going to require them to come up with some safety measures in the emergency rooms, so emergency department. So maybe in the long term, our law enforcement will not have to sit in the emergency room with our temporary patients. So we'll see. Temporary disorder patients. So I'm trying to think of some of my other bills that actually passed. Oh, a peer recovery bill that would allow individuals who go through a peer recovery training while they're in jail. Once they get out, as long as their crime had just been drug related, drug possession, that drug possession crime can be removed as a barrier crime. So they would qualify to be peer recovery specialists. Let's see. So I was very proud of that bill. And so the counseling community was too, because it would actually increase our the availability of mental health counselors in the broadest sense. They would be peer recovery specialists. And gun safety, I've done a lot in the space of gun safety and domestic violence. And I had a bill that essentially said an individual who's on a protective order or who's been convicted of, misdemeanor assault and battery of a household member under current law has to forfeit their firearm for 3 years. I wrote that bill 2 years ago. They had to forfeit their firearm for 3 years. I wanted a cooling off period. I wanted to ensure that, individuals could be safe in their own homes. I wanted to break the cycle of escalation. So my bill this past year merely ensured that if an individual transferred that firearm, which they had the right to do, in terms of forfeiting, they could either transfer it to somebody eligible to possess a firearm, they could give it to a firearm dealer, or they could give it to law enforcement. So I said if they chose to transfer it, they had to file an order with the court. So we knew it was actually being transferred, and we knew who it was being transferred to. And we, required that the age of the recipient be 21. And so in my mind, and in the minds of most rational people, this was merely intended to ensure that the current law was followed. That's all it was to follow the current law. It wasn't putting up a new barrier to accessing a firearm, but that bill went down. And so it was very telling, because in the past, we did have bipartisan support on the intersection of gun safety and domestic violence. In the area of domestic violence, we were able to get bipartisan support, but this year we were not. We had a gun safety storage bill and the NRA supported it, and that went down in the House. So if this was a year of really deciding what bright lines were going to be painted and then sticking to either side. And of course, abortion access was a bright line, gun safety was a bright line. More often than not, the environment was as well, which was very discouraging because there are some Republicans who will help us on environmental issues. So it was a very challenging year from that perspective. Let's see, I talked about the temporary detention orders and the hospital emergency rooms. That's going to be an ongoing conversation because Arlington, to its credit, has a crisis intervention center, and we're very proud of that. And under the Arlington model, which the state is trying to fund in a big way, law enforcement can relinquish custody and the individual can be triaged and then treated at the center. So we don't have law enforcement taking a lot of their time and having an environment that's not as trauma informed as it could be. So we're going to try to work on getting more crisis intervention centers up. We're going to try with working with hospitals, make the emergency departments more welcoming. And I guess I can stop there. There are a couple things I probably haven't covered. I'm happy to cover them. Oh, on voter access, again, there were bills to roll back the voter access that we had created. And now, ironically, the governor is coming out telling the Republicans to go out and vote early, which of course, his Republican lawmakers were the ones that were trying to narrow the time that we had for early voting and make it more complicated. So they weren't on the same page. I can tell you that. So I will stop and happy to take questions, or I can talk about another topic.
Oh, we got plenty. We can come up with some pretty good questions. So
sure.
First of all, Anne has a question. There's a 3.2 billion surplus, as you probably know. It's in limbo. And Anne wants to know, can you keep the governor proposed tax cut from enactment? Because we feel like there's been better things to do. I know the Democrats would like it to go more to public education. What are your thoughts?
Good. It's a great question, and I had it on my list. So thank you, Anne, for bringing it up. That's why we're at an impasse right now. The Democrats are holding firm. We don't want to send all this ongoing money out in the term in a tax cut, especially to corporations. I mean, all the economists tell us at some point the economy is going to constrict, and you will have less job growth and you'll have less money coming into your coffers. So if you've already given out tax cuts, you've let that ongoing money go out the door, you'll have less dollars available to fund core services if the economy does constrict. So we passed a budget last year. It was a biennium budget. The issue before us is really just amendments to that budget. And I feel pretty strongly that we should not be giving ongoing money, tax breaks to corporations. And that's where most of the dollars would go under the governor's proposal. So, if we're going to do tax cuts, maybe we do childcare tax credits so we can help working families. Maybe you help students with their student loans, maybe give them a tax cut or a break on student loans. Especially if they were Pell Grant recipients. There are things we can do that would make a difference in people's lives and qualify as, a tax credit, or at least qualify as a tool for putting more money in people's pockets. So that's where we're at. And you're right. We want to spend the Democrats want to spend more money on public education, and that whole narrative. I mean, I didn't talk about that in my remarks, but we had the governor came out with this tip line. It was just horrific. I mean, the whole thing about critical race theory and then the transgender bills. So we spent a lot of time protecting public education and trying to ensure we had a healthy, honest environment in our schools.
Okay. I have a question myself.
Yeah.
Okay. So our governor, that's hard for me to say, our governor wants to send 100 Virginia National Guard troops to the border. And that's going to cost us $3.1 million. How in the world is he able to do that? And can we stop him from doing it again, or we get a majority in the House and the Senate?
We're looking into that. He's got a fair amount of executive authority, actually, when it comes to the state division of the National Guard. So he does have executive authority. I'm not sure what we could do other than remove the appropriation or, use our bully pulpit. So I'm not. It's a great question, and certainly from a value perspective, it's awful. And I remember Governor Northam actually removed Virginia troops when, I don't know if you remember, but there was that whole episode of, the children being separated from their parents, immigrant children being separated from their parents. And we knew it was very traumatic. And our, Virginia guard members were called back.
Right.
So,
well, I think we could probably use it as part of our campaign for our candidates. I mean, how he's throwing away money for political reasons rather than using, like you said, for education and for other purposes. And so this, we talk about Republicans being conservative and into being probably very good at budgets, but they're actually very bad at it.
Yes, I mean, I am pretty convinced, and I've worked with 2 Republican governors and 2 Democratic governors. And I can say that I really believe the Republican view is to shrink government. At the end of the day, they're perfectly fine with government not having enough money to do the functions that we think are important. So, I mean, if that's your goal, I guess you would spend a lot on tax cuts and other things that don't really build the infrastructure that you need.
Exactly. So
the other irony of that is, at least my husband tells me, that the border, they're actually doing fewer arrests. So this created issue of fentanyl, which actually is coming in on trucks and other vehicles, not via individuals, is just so bogus. And I guess we can look forward to another year of performative art from the governor, since he wants to be president. I mean, that's really what a lot of this is about, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's true. And, I think the governor my view is he's trying to position himself probably for a VP pick. I don't think he thinks he can take Trump on and win the nomination. So yes, he is positioning himself for some kind of national office, and it's being noted by donors, and Republican donors are pouring lots of money into his PAC. So, I mean, I don't know if you read the Post today, you probably did, but the governor has already put, at least in social media, maybe in some of the networks too, they've put advertisements up already defining Democratic candidates in 15 of our swing House districts, House of Delegate districts. So that's what we're up against. These races are going to be very expensive. And the way the governor can increase his cachet is by retaining the House and thinking he's going to flip the Senate, which he's not. But he certainly doesn't want to lose the House, so he's spending a lot of energy and time.
And Mark Teal has a question, and his question is basically in line with what you just said. Is what are the best ways the Dems in Arlington can help ensure the Dems maintain the Senate majority, but also take back the House? And I want to add to that is, what are the three things we can say, or the three pressing issues we can persuade voters so that we can elect Democrats into the House and Senate?
Okay, well, I can give you some broad strokes on the messages, but you have to realize that we do shape them based on the district.
Mhm.
So in all of our swing districts, access to abortion care is a wedge issue and moves voters who are independent or even lean Republican. Now, depending on the district, it's either the first or the fourth issue. If the district is maybe economically challenged, or folks are perhaps at a lower income than they are in Northern Virginia, then the abortion access falls a little lower down on their priority list, but it's still there. So I think that abortion issue has to be talked about in terms of liberty. I think we need to talk about it in a way that everybody shares the value of liberty and privacy. And this is really an infringement on an individual's right to make a healthcare decision. And I think, folks understand that. The message that has resonated the best across the Commonwealth is a woman's decision about an abortion should be made between her and her doctor. And people sort of get that. So that's the context on an issue that is a wedge issue. And the other big wedge issue is actually, we would say financial security is the way we would talk about it. And that, that really means, ensuring that the family can, pay for their rent, have access to health care, send their child to college. So whatever safety net or helping hand they need for financial security really matters. And we need to put it in terms of, we're here to enable you to achieve that security. We're here to help you acquire what you need for security and sustainability. We're on your side, is that kind of thing. Whether it's job creation or better wages or, less expensive college education, the Democrats are here. So that's how, almost on any economic security point, we have taken the lead.
Okay.
So remember, when Governor Northam was governor, we were twice in a row mentioned as the best place to do business. That's because the Democrats do know how to create jobs, and they are fighting for higher wages.
And we're not turning away Ford to open a plant in Southern Virginia.
Right.
That would create thousands of jobs.
Yeah. So that's the second issue. And in the third issue, we are really looking at, gun safety is resonating across the Commonwealth too. So assault weapon bans it's polling at 75%. Safe storage, assault weapon bans, keeping our children safe, keeping our schools safe resonates. In fact, right here in our own backyard in the Chap Peterson race, we have anecdotal information. I don't have full information yet that the assault weapon ban was an issue. We had an assault weapon ban before the Judiciary Committee, 2 years ago, and Chap didn't like the way it was worded or had some issue with it and didn't vote for it. And that was noted. And it was a factor. So, again, security, job safety, liberty with abortion care. So those are the sort of the big picture messages. And then we fine tune them for the.
Right. And for the Senate, where would you advise the Arlington Dems within driving distance concentrate in order for us to maintain the majority in the Senate? What would it be? I think I know the answer, but I'm going to let
you. Rose, you do know the answer, but I'll reinforce it just because, you want me to. I know Russet Perry, of course, is in Loudoun, and she's got part of my my current district, which is quite red, actually. It's the part that where's the Trump golf course and all these very, very elaborate and expensive mansions near the Potomac. She's got that part of Loudoun, which is currently my part, and then the whole district is redrawn. She's got most of Loudoun, but all the western part snakes up to Stratford and picks up Fauquier. So it's a 50-50 district in an off year. Probably in a congressional year, it's 52% Democratic. It will be a very costly election. The Republican opponent, it's an open seat. Jill Vogel is the Republican senator who's retiring. But the Republican nominee is Juan Pablo Segura, and his father is a billionaire. His father started a big security company, and they're doing border security for the United States and probably internationally. So he has access to a lot of money, and he's already on the air. I don't know if you've seen ads. He's already on Channel 7 up here in the DC market. So we expect it to be, I don't know, maybe as much as a $7 or $8 or $9 million race for the Senate, which is obscene. But we really do have to win that seat. And she is a very good profile for that district.
Mhm.
She's very much like Jennifer Wexton. She was a former prosecutor. She was in the general counsel's office of the CIA. She really is she presents well. She's a really good fit for Loudoun. And I think the voters will figure that out. We just have to get them, we have to tell them about it. We have to get them to the polls. So door knocking will mean a lot. I think that we're going to be savvy enough to really, leverage whatever money we put into that race. We will have people knocking doors rather probably around the clock. When in 2011, my seat was a top target for the Democrats because they redrew it. Mary Margaret, her seat was primarily Arlington and Falls Church. And then they gave me all this purple and red and sent me out to Loudoun. So my seat became a top target, and we ended up having to knock 300,000 doors. I think we're going to have to do the same for Russet. And then the other one within driving range is Schuyler Van Valkenburg, and he's in Henrico. The Republican is Senator Donovan, female, OBGYN.
Mhm.
She has a lot of money. The district is heavily Democratic in a congressional year, but it comes down, congressional turnout gives us a 7% lead. An off year turnout gives us a 3% lead. So,
I was gonna say his opponent she's an OBGYN, yet doesn't she propose restrictions on abortion?
she does. Now she's very clever though. She came out with a proposal that was a 15-week ban, which, some people might think, oh, that's reasonable, but it didn't have many exceptions. And, they're all, many of the moderate Republicans are getting on the bandwagon of this 15-week ban, picking it up from Europe. And it's so different over in Europe because folks have access to care as soon as they need it. Healthcare is far more available, it's more affordable. They don't have the co-pays, and then they have a lot of exceptions. So the 15-week ban she's talking about is nothing like the ban in some of the European countries, but she's dressing it up, has a very moderate proposal. So yeah, Russet Perry and Schuyler Van Valkenburg. There's a fundraiser for Schuyler in Shirlington on the 19th, which I believe is next week, right?
Next Wednesday, I think.
Yeah, you're right. And I can tell you where it is, but he's a great guy. He's a history teacher. He's well known in the area. He's absolutely the best candidate we could run. And I'm just trying to figure out.
Is the fundraisers in Shirlington, like in?
Yeah, in Arlington, in Shirlington. Yeah, Adam and I are the I don't know, sparklers. Is that what you'd call us? I'll wear a sparkly dress or something. Okay, it is. Okay, I'm going to tell you. It's 3005 South Abington Street.
Okay.
3005 South Abington Street. It's okay. We need people there. It's okay. I suppose you're supposed to donate before you get the address, but it's all right.
Anybody else have any questions for Senator Favola? If we were to take the House and keep the majority, I would hope it would dampen Governor Youngkin's ambition to be run for president or vice president. But he can still do some damage, do you think?
Well, he'd be, yeah, he could do some damage, but it would be more limited. I mean, he would certainly lose some cachet if he couldn't keep the House.
Mhm.
You know, the message might be, why would he be a VP candidate if he probably couldn't deliver Virginia? And he certainly could deliver Virginia with Trump at the top of the ticket.
It's true.
So I mean, he really couldn't. So he would lose a lot of cachet. And people have asked the same question you have, Rose, and I've put it in this context. If we can take the House, it gives the Democrats the opportunity to really draw distinctions between what we stand for and what Youngkin stands for, because we could actually send bills to his desk
Mhm.
that reflect our vision. I mean, right now, we can't get them out of the House. So
Mhm.
the only things that are going to his desk really are sort of bread and butter things, you know, my mental health stuff, and where there's not a lot of bipartisan bickering. So there is an advantage to being able to draw those distinctions. So when 2025 comes along, we can say, look, this is the platform Democrats tried to get through. Youngkin vetoed the bills. You want to vote for us.
Right.
For lots of reasons.
And the worst case scenario for everyone to know, if we were not to take the House and we were to lose the Senate,
Oh,
I can't even imagine, but it would be abortion. And like you said,
we'll be stuck. Yeah, no, we would suffer a pretty draconian ban, because if Youngkin's left to his devices and you give him the tools, you have a Republican House and a Republican Senate, he'd go to the 6-week ban. That's really where he is. I mean, he's with the Texas and Florida crowd.
oh, that's
So
horrible.
yeah, make no mistake about it. You know, he's peddling the 15 weeks because he wants to look moderate and he was going to try to peel off Joe Morsi. That was his strategy. And then we won the Aaron Rouse seat. Thank you all very much. I'm sure some of you had a lot to do with that. So it wasn't until we won the Aaron Rouse seat that I had 21 pro-choice senators, you know, because Joe Morsi, I couldn't count. So now that Joe Morsi's been defeated, LaCharisse will clearly be in our corner. LaCharisse aired, but the governor, you know, his heart is with the 6-week ban. So
Mhm.
you can't give him the opportunity to get there.
Yeah.
We're the haven. We're the only state in the South that is allowing abortion care up through the second trimester.
My goodness.
So, I mean, we're expecting to get an influx. I mean, Indiana has this draconian law, you know, we really do expect to get quite an influx. North Carolina, South Carolina's, their laws in court. But
Yeah.
I
Look,
mean, that's really
look what's happening in Ohio. They're trying
in
to take.
Ohio, right? Yeah, and those are our border states. I mean, so it's West Virginia has a ban. So here we are. We're this oasis, and we've got to stay that way. I
So,
think.
Senator Favola, Barbara,
No, it's fine.
you've been in the Senate for 12 years. You've known these people. You probably have had lunch or dinner with Republicans at one time when things weren't so extremist and so radicalized. How do we get back to that bipartisanship, or is there any hope for the future?
Well, I'm always hopeful, so I believe there is hope for the future. Because at the end of the day, we do find agreement on a range of issues. And there are these hot button issues, like I mentioned, but we do find agreement on all kinds of things. Like certainly when it comes to mental health services, when we were talking about
Transportation.
transportation, you took the words out of my mouth. Governor McDonald, a Republican governor, came forward with the sales tax proposal, for Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads, and that really buttressed transportation. I think we'll get bipartisan support for more funding for Metro. We used to be able to get bipartisan support for public education. I think that's going to come back. The fact is that our public education system is ranked 4th in the entire country.
Mhm.
So I think that support's going to come back. I think at the end of the day, people are going to stop beating up on election officials and embrace this early voting and more access to voting. I mean, Governor Youngkin himself came out and said, start early voting, ask for the permanent, ask to get on the permanent absentee list. So, these are all things that, and if you talk to Republicans, and you don't, not necessarily the Republican elected officials, but if you talk to Republicans on the ground, a lot of them do support, middle of the road solutions.
Mhm.
It's the leadership that's working very hard to draw these distinctions. So I am hopeful.
I want to be hopeful.
Yeah.
The only thing is going to be the majority.
I am hopeful. Yeah, well, we do have to keep the majority of the Senate, that I can tell you. And I am hopeful that we can flip the House, but it is going to be more of a challenge than people realize.
Yeah. And I don't know if Arlington is a reflection, but I'm hopeful that it is, because I think we had some really good engagement at the doors. The voters really were asking questions, wanted to know more about the issues. And we had a pretty decent turnout in the primary. And I think that's hopeful that we'll have an even bigger turnout in the general election. I think people are paying attention. I think people are finally realizing we have an election every year. And it's
I think that's right, Rose. I think you're absolutely right. We did it was a lively conversation this primary session, primary season. Yeah, we were the second highest turnout of any Senate district other than the Cree Deeds, which was highly competitive in the Charlottesville area. Other than that, Little Arlington had the second highest turnout. In part, it was because of the Commonwealth Attorney's race and the county board races. So I think people understand that government matters, and it's all these local offices that are on the ballot. And with the attention school board members have been getting, I think it's elevated the importance of local offices more so than ever.
absolutely.
Yeah. So, and we're expecting there's going to be some turmoil in Loudon over the school board races. So we'll have to be paying attention to that. I guess I just never expected school board to be such a controversial issue,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm hopeful, like from what I'm seeing in our own races, and where there was partnerships among the campaigns and partnerships among the groups to work together. I believe that that's going to be in the general election, that we'll have groups or involved, like Planned Parenthood and groups from DC and from Maryland and New Virginia Majority, the Moms Demand Action. I like to think this is going to be that surge that we had the last time we took the trifecta. And I just want to believe that, because it's too important not to.
I know, I think you're right. And there'll be a lot of eyes on Virginia. And nationally, they're watching to see if this is going to be an indicator of 2024.
Mm-hmm.
So people are watching us. National groups have contacted us. As you mentioned, I am the whip and I am raising money for the caucus. So they're calling us to see exactly what the lay of the land is and what we think the turnout will be. And it's all about turnout because again, we're standing with the majority of voters. We're their partners. We're there to help them. We're there to give their families security. And they should, if they get out and vote, they will be voting for us. So we just have to get them out there.
Exactly. It depends who you vote for and what issues you want to bring up. And it's important to know, to get that feeling of the voter, what will motivate them to vote. Like I had to tell you, I spoke to a young woman who was in her 20s and I said, are you going to vote for the primary? And she said, well, my friend over here told me not to even bother. It's a waste of time. And I said to her, I go, well, actually, this is your primary. This is about, your say and who you want as
Yeah,
your
really.
attorney.
Especially in a district where, it's so heavily Democratic. The primary is the name of the game. Same thing with the Republican district. Do you want me to turn on my light? Is it too dark here? There
There you go.
There we go. It's a little better. Yeah,
There were a number of issues like affordable housing. There was a number of issues about, like you said, the school board, all different things that she should be interested in. Anyway, she turned around to her friend and says, I think I'm going to vote. And I'm going right over there to the courthouse and I go, it takes you 5 minutes, not even that.
that's
It's
right. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
the kind of thing we need to tell people. It doesn't take long, but you have a say.
Yeah. And I think this early voting makes it easy. We also have same day registration.
Mhm.
So for young people or for folks who just moved here and just didn't get a chance to register, they can go and register and they can vote a provisional ballot until the registrar clears everything in the database. So yeah, I mean, same day registration, we have really taken steps to make it easier to vote.
So
Do you
everyone,
see an expansion, Barbara, do you see an expansion of the kind of voting we did for the county board? Is that something that's going to go anywhere in the state?
Oh, you're talking about rank
Rank
file.
Yeah,
Yeah, rank choice,
sorry.
rather. Well, localities have the opportunity to do that now. I think it's very helpful in primaries because you end up getting somebody who can garner the most support. I think our nominees are a good example of sort of everybody having a voice. Susan Cunningham was sort of in the no missing middle column, but she acknowledged we needed more housing and she would have done it differently. But so those folks who have some anxiety about missing middle would have some comfort, I think, with Susan Cunningham and Maureen Coffey's bringing a different voice. She's a renter and, she said she wanted to at least evaluate missing middle. She likes the idea. So we sort of ended up with the two who were not in the extreme, but more or less in the middle, which I think is a good thing. I think it positions your party very well for the general. I think ranked choice voting in the primary positions your party very well in a general. I'm not convinced I want ranked choice voting in the general yet. And I think the Arlington County Board is examining whether or not they want to do, a ranked choice voting for the county board in the general. I'm not 100% convinced I want to go there, but I do want it in the primary. So people were saying, should you write it into the law? And I said, no, because localities really do have the authority to do it. So jurisdictions are watching. They're going to see what happens with our general election in Arlington. So, yeah, we'll see. What did you think of it? Do you guys have a different opinion? Maybe you didn't like the ranked choice voting. I don't know.
Well, I think the fact that we have two moderates is really helpful. We can avoid was it 2014 when we had the streetcar issue?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. And because everybody could sort of live with the two of them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it positions us very, very well for the general, and I think it focuses more on solutions than sort of the ideology, you know, I mean, we had one candidate that was no missing middle, no way, no how, and then we had another candidate that sort of took an extreme view too, so.
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit more confusing with two vacancies versus one. Because
Yeah, voters said that to me, yeah, I hear you, but the calculation worked.
Mhm.
It was complicated. I mean, voters, I think it was not complicated filling out the ballot. It was probably complicated understanding how the calculation would work.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, change change is not all bad.
Change is not bad.
Yeah.
It's being open-minded. But are there any more questions, any more discussions for Barbara?
I do want to thank you all for getting involved. I mean, I know probably everybody on this phone call has knocked a door or donated or gotten involved in some way, certainly in your neighborhood. And I just think that's really important, and it should not be undervalued.
Yeah.
So volunteerism and getting involved is really good.
Very
So
good.
I just want to thank you for all that.
And for
And
the
thank you to you. Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much
much for
for
all
your
your-
wisdom and hard work.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
thanks for taking the time to meet with us.
Oh, it's
And-
been my pleasure. I'm in my comfortable dining room seat.
and it's so cool for me to say you're my senator.
I know, I
Yes,
love it too. I'm so happy. It's nice to be back home because I've served Arlington on the county board for 14 years. So it's very nice to be back in my community. For my entire Senate district is here. Adam has 5 precincts very close to Arlington, very close to Alexandria. That's yeah. So I will let you go. If you, and do you, Rose, I can stay on. I didn't see anything in the chat. Did you want me to?
I think that's about it. No one else has any comments, but we're close to an hour.
Okay, thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you
very,
so
very
much.